Welcome everyone. It's nice to have a kind of intimate group when more and more things are kind of being live streamed. I think it's still nice to retain that ability to interact. So welcome to the Artist Talk for Community and Culture, which is an online exhibition of works by Queens College Art Education graduate students, and it was hosted by Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning, or JCAL for short. The exhibition shows projects from a course titled Community and Culture, Historical Perspectives in Art, taught by Jamaica Kim. So today we'll be hearing from Jamaica and some of the artists in the exhibition. My name is Naomi, and I'm the Visual Arts Program Associate at JCAL. And so before we get into it, for those of you who are new to the organization, I wanted to give just a brief introduction. So JCAL is a multidisciplinary art center based in Southeast Queens. We present visual performing arts programs and offer artist residencies, supporting both emerging and established artists. We also provide art education programs at the building and in the schools surrounding in the area. So JCAL has closed its doors since mid-March, like most other places, but we've since moved many of our activities online, including this exhibition and this talk. So you can see performances and classes for free on YouTube and browse other exhibitions on jcal.org also. We do look forward to reopening our facilities safely and gradually as we're able to. And I do want to recognize the unique moment in time that we're in and just acknowledge that many of us have experienced loss and hardship over the past few weeks and months, and just in all of the movement of people pushing for social change, whether that's in our government institution, organizations, or personal lives. So in light of this, we at JCAL hope to continue providing a platform for artists so that diverse viewpoints can be expressed and discussed, like tonight. So we are happy to share the work of these artists and educators and to support their learning process. And I have just confirmed that all of the students have graduated this spring, so that's amazing, congratulations. And then lastly, as a housekeeping note, you've all been already muted, so I don't need to explain that much, but just to give our undivided attention and nice quiet space for the artists to present, and but please unmute yourself at the end when we have time for questions. Okay, so with that, I'll turn things over to Jamie, who's the instructor of the class and the curator of the show. So take it away.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for showing up today. It's so nice to see everyone's faces, some familiar and some new faces. And a special thank you to Jamaica Center for Arts and Learning, JCAL, and to Naomi Kuo, who coordinated the exhibition and also was very kind to share her time as a visiting class guest. And this talk was initially scheduled for June 4th. That was already 2 weeks ago. And we decided to hold space for the protests that were happening and for the fight for Black lives. And that has been and is continuing. So I just wanted to state that. And before the artist's presentation, I want to speak more about the theme of the exhibition, and that is the notion of community, which was the basis of the course, and examining various ways of how community exists. And we specifically took a look at, Flushing, Queens, which is indigenous Lenape land. And it is known for currently as a food culture, but I wanted to kind of step back further in history. And we started by examining the Flushing Remonstrance. It's a document, it's a protest document from 1657, which was the precursor to the right of religious freedom. And interestingly enough, Flushing is one of the most religiously diverse neighborhoods in America. And we were lucky enough before things shifted that we visited the first Hindu temple in North America on Bound Street. And we had a talk with one of the priests there, and were able to have interesting conversations about the history, and also to kind of enjoy the food too in the cafeterias. So that was a great a moment in our class. And then furthermore, we visited historical sites such as the Lewis Latimer House, the Bound House, as a way to kind of think about the convergence of and the possibility of converging narratives between history, art, and community engagement. And I think more than ever, these questions about community and what it is to reside and be responsible and be part of a community is made more urgent by these like seismic shifts that we're experiencing. And it forces us to, you know, like reimagine what our future and the spaces we occupy will be. So with that, I want to introduce the artists and have them share their work. First, we're gonna have Ivana Ng, and then Beata Szyskowska, I hope I'm saying the last name properly, and Anna Castro. And we're gonna save questions for the end, and then we'll open up. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to write them in the chat box. And we'll have the artist speak now. So Ivana, please take it away.
Hi. Yeah, so in thinking about community and culture, I was really thinking about my own personal experience with what that really means. And growing up in Flushing, it is so diverse. And it is kind of, and I'm also coming from a mixed background, so really finding like a community based on, I ended up going more towards, you know, both my Chinese side and my Italian side. So I was focusing on the ideas of immigration a lot, and both my parents immigrated here to America. My father when he was younger, and my mother when she was going into college. So I'm just going to share my screen or my window so that I can show my work. So starting off with who are we? That's a work that was really a reflection of the stories that I've heard about my parents coming to America. So it's a mix of paintings that I did of my mom when this was one of the first images from when she was here in America, and paintings from when my father first came here and his family. And kind of mixed with that is some transparencies of writings from both my mother and my grandmother, as well as some documents from when they were traveling here, a few photos. So there's just a lot of layers of different forms of identification. And that was something that I was kind of thinking about for a while, this idea of showing these documents and kind of saying like, these are people who are here and kind of their proof of their existence. And I think that's something that, you know, a lot of immigrants, especially if they're coming here illegally, there's some erasure of, you know, their own identity, where they're coming from, and, you know, trying to get a grasp on what American culture is. So with that, I also made a work called Detached. So Detached is based off of, so my father's from Hong Kong. And when I look up Hong Kong and what it looks like, I was actually very confused about what the map was. And so I kind of painted what I believed it was. And it's that kind of feeling of, it was one of the cultures that I am, you know, my father's from Hong Kong, but it's also slightly detached there. My father came here when he was 7 years old. He hasn't been back, and he doesn't have too much of an interest to go back. So it's that kind of detachment of, this was my home, but I've left. And then kind of opposing that is Casa di Mia Mama, where this is the actual hometown where my mother grew up. This is a painting of a map of that. And with that, there's slightly more of a connection. She's gone back to Italy. I've gone to visit. She still has family there. So, it's still almost described as her home, even though she hasn't lived there in years. And then moving from that, it's kind of the joining of the two, and then my life, where I have a map for Rooted. It's actually a map of Flushing, and I kind of mapped out the important areas of what was my life and what kind of made me who I was today. And I have these bits of flowers and materials, just kind of almost like a route of like, this is where I started, and then it branches out from there. And then moving on to the work Attached. So this is a painting of my home. And then it's placed next to this. I grew up in an attached home, so it's kind of a play on words, and also just the visual of, we have this, it's paper mache with little bits of stems and things mixed in, and I've layered them so that it is kind of the idea of an attached home, but really this is where my heart is, and I'm still very attached to that home and where I've come from. And then the last image is home. So home isn't a physical space for me. It's my family and the family that I've created and that's growing. So this is a mix of my parents, my husband and his family, my sister and her husband, and my husband is also an immigrant who came here when he was younger. My sister's husband is, he has family from, his origins are from Jamaica. So it's kind of like this merging of immigrants where, we're all from such different places, but we have all come together. And it ends up being your own little community that you create. And I think, and I see that a lot with immigrants where, you just kind of create your own groups, and it's kind of a support system. So I just kind of I was thinking about that a lot when I was creating this piece, and also still obstructing the actual images with these little bits of flowers and things as a way to almost protect identity and block it, but still having bits of it show through, because again, from what I've noticed as immigrants, you're coming here with your own identity, but then you're also shifting it a lot just to adjust to where you are. So that's what I've been kind of exploring, the ideas that I've been thinking about when I was working on these. Okay.
That's great. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to save it for the end.
Okay.
Bieta?
Hello, it's my turn. Let me share my little presentation with you. It's right here. I just wanted to show it bigger, and it's right here. Okay. Yes, I think I forgot how to make it bigger. Oh, thank you so much. It was my daughter, the oldest one. My community group is very similar to to what Ivana said. We're creating the group of people we are with. It could be the family, it could be the people we are friends with. So I chose as my essential community the group of my students who became very dear to me this year. And I was thinking that I can really talk about them without showing their artwork. So from the reproduction of their paintings and reliefs and sculpture from this year, I decided to build a house which could be the symbol of all our houses and symbol of essential community where you can enter, and this house symbolizes what we do together, how we nurture each other, how I support them, how they support me, and how much we created this year. So this house is not just the collage, it's like a symbol of what our community look like today, because it's not a physical thing where we teach at school. In the middle of March, we started teaching online, and everything became completely different. When you talk to students who you know from physical classroom online, and you communicate only through emails, and you see them just a little bit in on the screen, suddenly everything is not as much. The materialization happens to people and objects. So this poster kind of changes the scale of the student faces, the size of their artwork, and it has lots of to do with what I'm doing as an artist in my own practice. Lately, I was painting blue paintings, associating the blue color with color of the eyes, with some kind of melancholia of things we don't remember very, very well when images are not maybe as sharp. So this is just a sample of what I do in my painting practice. And when we look back on the watercolors, they look like the edge of atmospheric perspective. Like the essence of the image is here. Everything is dynamic and colorful, made by students. And all the edges are the frame of the house, which is actually very airy, very esoteric, not so concrete. And I would like to show maybe I will mention this one. Like I'm always using some kind of documents, some photos from old movies, some photos from which I made. So here we have the photo of the young actor who played in the Death in Venice. It was a movie based on Thomas Mann novel, and he played young Polish boy. It was during the plague, and this movie was very doomed and romantic and symbolic. So I'm kind of associating the blue color with everything ambiguous and romantic. And here are my students. And I was never a big fan of watercolor, but it's actually it matched the what I wanted to add to students full of energy creations. So my watercolors are a little bit lighter in touch than what they did, but I like the contrast between how they see themselves in each of the project we did and how I see them. So we have those images playing together in the same composition. And I have very diverse students, each of them bringing different perspective into our art house. here I have enlargement of some of their artworks from the big collage, and each of them you can actually match the faces to my portraits because the likeness is in all of them. So it's nice to see how we all looking at each other. They look at themselves, I look at them, and it's like exchange of our image making. I also have some other projects which are tiny in the composition. They did medals inspired by Pisanello, which is quite difficult for young people. But this project was about how in our art house they are the value maker of tomorrow, and who knows, maybe those medals are going to be in circulation in the future, and they will be offered for something. My students even wrote the dedication for each of them to precisely describe the meaning, like why would they make the medal, for what they will be offered. So for example, one of the students dedicated this medal to older brothers dedicated to love and protect their younger sisters. And each of the students have something to say behind the project. We also have some landscape paintings. Each project has the idea of learning new things, how the picture is built, theory of color, but mainly it's about doing different exercises and trying to different medias, so they feel that they are very powerful artists who can really express themselves in different kind of exercises freely. And everything was in this year everything was concentrated on their young identity, how they see themselves, how they can portray themselves. So I think I gave them lots of powerful ideas, and they saw themselves the first time as somebody who is really powerful and very important. So this house gathers whole our experience this year, and my portraits of them are tribute to show how important they are to me.
Thank you, Beata. Yeah. Okay. We have next Anna Castro.
Hi, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Okay. So my name is Anna, and I live in the suburbs of Long Island, specifically Patchogue. And I am also, my parents are also immigrants. So just like Ivana and Beata had described community, you know, it's about the people, you know, who make it together, and it kind of in terms of like what everyone aspires to be. So for me specifically, for this project, it was kind of difficult because I couldn't really place kind of like a definition of my community, just because, so I am Hispanic, I am Peruvian, but Patchogue, how I've seen it, was always predominantly Caucasian. And so for me, my traditions have always been kept like in my house. And so the picture that you see here is something that is very important to my family and my extension of my family. So it's a triptych. Specifically, it's called Procession del Señor de Milagros. So my parents raised me as a Catholic, and again, it's all about these traditions that kind of go through from young and old. And so just the next two slides are just close up, but basically you know, you see this young child here, and it's kind of like this tradition of like, let me carry my tradition forward. So this is always held in the city in every October. And again, it's something very important for us to kind of think of it as a renewal for our spirit. And it's kind of like something that we've been doing every year. And so going back to Patchogue, I actually originally lived in Queens and then I moved to the suburbs. So I've always felt this constraint in regards to my culture, my traditions in Patchogue. And the works that I've created were kind of, again, I was very lost and I wasn't sure how I could define my community in Patchogue. And so throughout COVID, you know, everyone was isolated. And so throughout the works, it's just been me kind of producing different types of what Patchogue means to me. So for this one, Antes, so part of my project also was researching what Patchogue was, because I never really took the time to really think about it, because I had always known it as just my hometown, you know, pretty quiet, pretty suburban. And so reading books about Patchogue, how it was mostly dominantly Native American tribe and focus on nature and sea life. And as, you know, population development kind of increased, certain things kind of were pushed away. And so disperse is kind of what kind of led into that kind of idea of like, so Patchogue is originally something that was nature fill, and then slowly development happened, and now nature is kind of forgotten. And so leading into that, key was kind of my interpretation of discovering different maps of Patchogue. So again, within researching Patchogue, there are just a few maps that you don't really see as much. There's one from 1807, this is from 1897, a map of Patchogue. And again, I'm trying to figure out what Patchogue is in my definition. And so leading into the next slide, let me just quickly make this bigger. Patchogue itself, one of the things that was really interesting was finding the Native American definition of Patchogue, which means where two streams separate. So the definition itself was very interesting, and I think that itself kind of led an impression on me, just because I think it definitely hit home because of being kind of separated between trying to fit into this Caucasian neighborhood and also having my Hispanic culture as well. So the one on your left is kind of a map of the past and of the present of Patchogue. And the second one, these pictures are pictures of queens that I've known and of, as well as Patchogue. So just to give you an example, this building here, this is the church I've been going to Patchogue basically ever since I moved here. And this used to be my old house in Queens. And then the third part of this work, kind of, I included some writing because I felt like that was also very important to kind of include. And I think my mother and my brother kind of helped me out trying to define their definition of Patchogue, because my mother, who speaks mostly Spanish and a little bit of English, she kind of described her description of coming to Patchogue. And my brother, who's younger than me than 3 years, he's describing Patchogue as well, but I think in a different, like more of a realistic and crucial point of view from his point. So tension, this one was something that I kind of enjoyed making because I felt like the previous ones were very kind of static, like they were just repetitive. And I think this one really kind of played an important part of what patchogue is. Prior to the, I think it was like after I graduated high school around 2008, there was a murder in Patchogue, maybe like a few blocks from my house. And that really played a huge role in my definition of community, because I had always spoken with my mom, my parents outside Spanish, and the fact that the murder, which was about 7 teenagers, so they're like juniors in high school, they had murdered an illegal immigrant coming back from work. And so that kind of spiraled into Patchogue because, you know, again, this is a predominantly Caucasian community. And so for that to happen, there was a lot of just heartache, and everyone was worried about what happens now to, you know, Hispanic, you know, communities, because it's not just myself, there is Ecuadorian, Colombian, Salvadorian, so that kind of played a huge role in making this part. Uncertainty kind of goes into that as well, because again, I wasn't too sure what would happen in Patchogue, because again, no one knows what's really going to happen in regards to, you know, after this whole murder situation, how do we grow as a new community where we kind of accept, you know, new identities of different cultures. And again, using writing to kind of describe what is going on in Patchogue. Again, I was researching and I was able to find books, specifically kind of like a middle school assignment from around the 1800s. And the students had interviewed residents in Patchogue and described kind of like the same thing as well, what's been going on. Again, it's like a circle, somewhat like a full cycle. Routine, this one again is focusing on map, the future map that we have now in Patchogue, because we are now developing more of a kind of like a city-like style. And these are places that I've gone to basically every day of my life here in Patchogue. And so that kind of played another role into how would I describe Patchogue besides the places that I've been to. And lastly, this piece, traffic, I had kind of, again, I am juxtaposing Patchogue with the present and the future map. And so what you see is kind of like a progression of colors, but what's actually happening is my interpretation of what traffic has been like here, the development that's been going on in Patchogue. And so as of now, we have more restaurants, we're having more kind of like model houses. And so now it is becoming more like the city. And I felt like with Patchogue, it's very hard to kind of see where it will go, because I really don't know what to expect, especially just, you know, having my childhood here. It's interesting to see, you know, the past as a child and now as an adult. I wonder how Patchogue will continue on. But yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna and Yetta and Ivana. I want to kind of open up for questions, and please, everyone else, if you have questions for the artist, please type them up in the chat box. But I want to kind of start off the conversation, maybe in terms of, you know, how you make your formal decisions, like in terms of the materials. Seems like they're very intentional, and sometimes like materials that I never thought would be actually, you know, be put together, are put together, like resin and thinking of Ivana's drawings, and she actually had like, you know, stuff like from nature actually mixed in with the materials, and watercolor and the wood print and on masa paper. So all of these are very considered. So I'm wondering, how do you make those decisions, and what is that process like, and how does that lend itself to the narrative of your work?
Well, for my work, so usually I work in resin, and because of this pandemic, I haven't really gotten the chance to work with resin. Also, just trying to move away from it because of how toxic it is. But so instead, I was working with these transparency sheets, because essentially it's the same thing where you can actually see through this material. And that's kind of been something that I also consider is, you know, if you're going to have work up in a space, it's not just considering the work, but also considering what can be seen behind it. So if these were to be hung up against the wall, you're still seeing the wall behind it. You're still aware of the space that you're viewing these works in. Or if they were to be placed, you know, some in front of the other, it's still almost creating this structure of a space that you're still very aware of, and you're looking at one work while looking at another. So because this is an online exhibition, everything is against just one white wall, and just to make it clearer. But otherwise, I prefer things kind of being in the center of a room, and, you know, so that they can kind of work together, because the works do, you know, they're all a conversation with each other. So that's kind of how I make the decision of using this transparency versus something like a canvas or something.
Thank you. Let me see if
Right.
Anna,
There we go. For me, basically the materials I had at home were kind of what I had to use. You know, I originally started off with printmaking, just because it's always been a love for it. And so I had blocks of wood, so I wanted to use them. And paper, you know, printmaking and paper they're always intertwined with each other. They kind of complement each other. And so I had that as well. And, you know, I think in relations to the work, I think it definitely kind of supported everything, especially even to the writing itself. But yeah, for the most part, what I had was basically what I had to use. So yeah.
how about you, Beata?
I had this similar experience. I didn't want to paint oils, which are my favorite. And I was thinking that something liquidy, light and precious like paper will be perfect to create the cards, like the cards in calendar, like you rip them off and there is the new one. So I was painting them every day, like each phase for new day of not being physically at school. And also watercolor is really special. It really embraces like who we are, like we are made of water. Everything is like our life depends on like magic. And I was also thinking about how it's probably the part of my fascination with portraits, that portraits give every subject the dignity. Like you might have it already, but the portrait will give you the new one. It gives you the respect I have for you as a model, as the person I'm looking at. So I wanted this house to really represent something, despite the fact that it's only paper and watercolor, something solid, something. There is this seriousness in paintings, and this year kids were looking at artists who are very good and very exuberant. So I wanted them to gain the strength from example. And for example, when they were working on Michelene Thomas paintings, I wanted them to be this kind of not non-smiling, very serious people um, who understand how important they are. So each portrait is, some of them are maybe smiling, but most of them are like possessed and serious, and they look forward the future, which none of us know. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to remember that we respect each other and love, and there is like a future, and we definitely are something together.
Yes.
Those little pieces, like I was trying to show you enlargement, because if I will print this as a big poster, or if I can arrange this physically, you can see all the little details, all the hours of work when we were still together. So it's,
Yeah. And I have,
much work is rich, yes.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I just want to kind of go back, and I just want to make a point of mentioning the titles for the work, because I feel like for the titles, I feel like it kind of reveals the story behind the work that you're doing. So like, even for Ivana, like, you know, from detached to rooted to attached, it seemed like there's some kind of a timeline, even though there is no dates. The actual titles of the work gives you an insight into the family timeline of migration, and, you know, kind of like being rooted in, you know, in New York, or in a new home, you know. So, and also with Anna, I think we discussed this idea of like titling tension, like the title tension and what that means. So I think this idea of language plays an important role in whether it's through titles or using Spanish in your work, Anna. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So with my work, I feel like sometimes, so for example, the procession that I had shown in the beginning, so someone had asked what the translation of it is, and it's basically a procession of Lord of Miracles. So again, being raised as a Catholic, you know, I was taught, you know, Sunday, Catholic school. So for me, some works kind of need the Spanish because I think there's always going to be a connection. And I think it opens to more questions, like you had asked, like why Spanish? And I think most of my work always plays on both English and Spanish. And I think it's because of my identity, where my first language was Spanish, but you know, going into a English school, I had to learn English. So, you know, it definitely plays an identity role for me. And again, it kind of depends on the work itself, whether or not if it needs Spanish or if it doesn't need Spanish.
Yeah. I had to learn English myself as a child, so I remember that kind of, that duality, and it still exists to this day too, you know. So Ivana, did you have a
yeah, so when it came to naming them, I think I'm aware that they're very abstract, and so I just wanted to give some insight of what it could possibly be, you know. So it's and you're right with the ordering of it, where, you know, it does start off with you know, the painting Who Are We, which is that kind of coming to America. Then it's kind of looking back at where everyone's from, so Italy and Hong Kong, and then, you know, now that they're together, it's, well, how did this life look like for them, or, well, for me, through what they've done for me. So that's for rooted. Then thinking about attached, you know, as you get older, you start to realize how attached you are to your upbringing. And home is, you know, it's what you create. You know, now that I'm older, I'm creating my own home. My sister's creating her own home, but together, you know, it's making it larger. So yeah, it's just kind of that building and of this little community that starts from somebody coming to America.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. There's a question in the chat that's Susan for me. She writes, how did the work that you wanted the students to do change after classes went online? Is this what you initially imagined them making? And I think that's an interesting question because I had to kind of think about it. Like, did it change? Like, did my expectations or did my imagination of like what the project, and the question, I mean, I think the answer for me is like, I didn't really have any expectations, or like, I didn't, you know, like, I didn't think that it changed. But what did change was the way I read your work. Like, it had so much more relevance and a connection to what's happening outside in the real world. So like, I mean, each of your work, like if you read it in context to what's happening right now, is, I mean, it reflects. And so I feel like in that way, the way I perceive it and the way I understand it, that has changed just through external circumstances. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I have to say. And I also want to say thank you, Susan, for coming. So yeah. Let's see. So what do we, I don't know, it's a small enough group where we can kind of unmute each other and kind of like have a conversation. What do you guys think? Is there a way to unmute all or?
I would like to add something to this language
Yeah.
question,
Oh,
because I like how Ivana and Anna use the written words in their artwork, because it suggests, which is like so obvious, that language is so strictly connected to visuals, that you're writing about your different feelings about the same thing. So it's like a part of visual, and all different languages are kind of make visible through your artwork. It's very interesting. I didn't use any languages I know in my picture, but I just wanted to add this layer of us, our images being a structure for house, which is the symbol of shelter, and in the sense the same like Ivana said, there's something we build every day. So it could be physical, but it really is not. I was changing places of my living very often in my life, and it's really relative. Like, you make your home where you are with people you care about. So it's not as physical as we think.
Okay, thank you for that, Rieta. Let's see, maybe we could unmute, Naomi, is there a way we can unmute people or mute everybody?
I think I'm unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
yes.
hi. I wanted to first let the artists know that all of their work was phenomenal. And I do agree with Bieta. The language is a strong part of the culture. So I am so glad that it was incorporated in the pieces in somehow. So you could get a feel. It helps you get a feel of the culture with the language incorporated in there. Yes. But you all demonstrated the culture beautifully, whereas to help me feel the culture even in the expressions. And I definitely liked how Ivana added in the flower, what was it? The flower work and stuff, you know, that was nice too. And then your students, Pieta, they were absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, they worked very hard.
I could tell. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to say thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, I really enjoyed this. I did. Hmm.
Yeah, no, thank you, Irene. I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning, but something I didn't touch on is the flowers that you said.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just like, so before working on these, I work with resin, as I had said earlier.
Okay.
And I always would, that's when I really started to actually put pieces of nature into my work. And that's because just out of habit, I don't know, sometime when I was younger, I just, anytime I was around like a bush or anything and I saw something that I liked, or just there was something that I wanted to, like a moment that I wanted to remember, I would sometimes like pick whatever nature things were around me, and it was
Oh,
kind of a way of
nice.
preserving it.
Yeah.
So, and you know, it's that same kind of idea of, you know, I'm trying to preserve these natural art elements that, you know, they disintegrate, they fall apart, but, you know,
Yes.
and preserving, you know, identities of people, preserving stories, preserving culture, everything, all of that. So it all kind of ties in.
Beautiful, beautifully done.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. I did want to ask a question though. Do you happen to speak any Japanese? Like, was your father able to teach you any?
My grandmother taught me how to say in Cantonese how to count from 1 to 10, and that's about it.
Okay, okay. Because yes, you have a very unique background there with the Italian and Japanese. That is very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all again. Thank you all.
You can count your blessings in Chinese every day. Like,
That's a, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yes. Thank you, Jemery and Naomi, for putting that all together.
Oh yeah, thank you, Irene. Thank you for
Of
Yes.
showing
course.
up.
Thank you for being so engaged.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and
Thank you.
we students are very grateful. Jamari was such a great, smart leader this semester, and she really showed us the deeper meaning of community.
Oh, that's
And the
nice.
situation with pandemia just added another layer of tough experience to something which we which we thought that we know, but thinking about it, visiting the places, reading different materials, and experiencing online education really gave us what this semester with this class supposed to. So now I think we will appreciate everything much more
Yeah.
and pay
It's
attention
amazing.
to everything much more than ever before. So thank you, Jermery. Thank you, Naomi. And
Yes.
it was a very teaching experience for us.
Absolutely. Oh, and I did want to touch on one more thing if I can.
Yes.
Anna, the way you demonstrated what you had went through in Patchogue, being in a majority Caucasian atmosphere, and I'm quite sure that had to be a very fearful situation to live through. Um, was your painting kind of therapeutic for you to get you through that situation? Was your artwork the therapy to help you get through that situation of the cultures having that little confliction there?
Amazing question. I'm like, oh wow, that's really deep. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I think yeah, because it was a conversation that Jeremy and myself had. It's like it's like a never-ending definition of what patchogue is,
Yes.
and you know, it's right because it's like as of now, I still feel it's there's good and bad, and I think
Mhm.
trying to find the good is better to kind of definitely
Yes.
now it's better to see than the bad. And I think yeah, I mean trying to find what patchogue is and trying to make a home, because like Beata and Ivana said, it's about, you know, the people you make it with, and
Yes.
you know that is very important to kind of expand, and you make your new family, and that becomes your new community that you want to kind of keep showing to future people. Just like Beata said with her students, it's all about creating this new community that you are trying to aspire and trying to keep going through, and that is what we definitely need now more than ever, just to kind of keep going with the good and show what is good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Someone else?
I have a question along those lines. I noticed all of you have a really multicultural experience. And I think in this moment where we're all, a lot of us are asking, like, what does solidarity look like? How do you get to the place where you can build that? Like, do you have any insights, either from, your own lives or what you've discovered through your projects? Like how do you navigate when you're different from people and all that?
Somehow this demonstration of the last weeks, which we all went to, it feels like we are part of building up new system. So whatever we brought with us, it seems like it might be relevant now in a new order. Maybe it's going to be better. And I'm talking about like social justice and the new word for us, for my kids. It's really promising. It's not going to be easy, probably the couple of next year, but there is this kind of solidarity right now, which gives the hope that it might be a new, better America in the future.
And this could be open for anybody, right, Naomi? So anybody who wants to answer.
So jumping off of Beata, yeah, I definitely think, definitely just to think about the future. And, I'm just thinking about just my point of view and like how, again, I'm kind of going back to the work for Patchogue, like, or just overall, I think there will be always fear. And I think that's something that we need to be upfront about, because, we don't really know. And I think, especially when we want a world where there is social justice and there is, acceptance of everybody. So again, like Beata, I'm hoping for like the best. Like, I think you're right. It's all about, knowing and teaching, what's right and what it means to be a community, what it really means to be different, because I think some people kind of don't think that different is okay, but I think different is great. I mean, look at all of us. I mean, there's different like traits. We're different in terms of like someone can be better at drawing or someone can be better at sports, and I think that is something that people really need to kind of understand and accept. But I know realistically it's hard because not everyone wants to accept it. And I think there are always going to be individuals who are kind of hoping for, like us. I mean, we are, we understanding what multicultural is. And I think that is what really makes the difference. And that is what kind of is pushing towards a better future, like Beata said. So, yeah.
It's difficult to understand how anybody who came to America could be not welcome. Like all the immigrants, people from somewhere else build this country, and it's very difficult to understand this motion that people are perceived as dangerous and others and so foreign and different. And like by now everybody should get used to that we are from all over the world, and it's really like normal, and we should be open for that. And welcoming, and any kind of otherness should be not really surprising. But I guess those are all the social changes, and it's just exciting to live in our times, because it seems like everything is getting better, has a chance to get better.
Let's hope. Yeah. But on that note, I feel like we can kind of close off this artist talk, and I want to really again say thank you. And you know, I think throughout these past couple of months, our idea of community has evolved and changed, and I hope that once we're kind of dismantling this whole system that has privileged whiteness and you know, discounted lives of others, especially Black lives, could build up a new system of community of care, you know, and health and empathy. And maybe those things could be foundations for new systems. So I just want to kind of put that out there. And I also want to thank the artists who were my students, who've shown me so much, and I've learned a lot from you. So thank you very much for that time. And to Naomi again, and to Susan, and to everybody else who's here, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And I hope to speak with you soon again. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything.
Congratulations, artists. Thank you for joining, everybody.
Thank you, artists. Yay.
Yes, yay. Good job. Good job.
I look forward to
Thanks for your questions,
God
Irene.
bless. God bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.